Well, we're getting more analysis of these leaked documents from the Pentagon, including some people who think that these leaks are themselves a Pentagon op. I'm not going to comment on that. I don't know yet. I mean, this could be a part of some 4D chess move by the Pentagon. I don't have a lot of respect for the Pentagon's strategies, though. So, I mean, I don't think that this is a psyop, but it could be. Which, even if it's a psyop, that does not mean that these documents are false. In fact, some might be completely genuine. Some might be completely false. There could be bad apples thrown in there. It's normally how you want to work it with disinformation. You throw in some truth, you throw in some lies, and you have just enough truth for people to believe it, and then just enough lies to, get people off on the wrong track. And so I don't know which this is yet. I am trying to look at as many of these documents as I can, though, and read analysis of them for people who can really understand them. Because, like I said yesterday, a lot of them are kind of just written in code language, and there's acronyms and things that I simply don't know the meaning of. But antiwar.com has an interesting article out on one of these sheets, and it's specifically about the U.S., Israel, and the prospect of getting Israel to support Ukraine in the war against Russia. Now, Israel's been pretty neutral on the Russia-Ukraine war. Ukraine and Russia have always been pretty friendly with Israel. There's a lot of Russian Jews and Jews of Russian descent in Israel. In fact, I think that that's the most common background for Israeli Jews. I think more Jews in Israel trace their roots back to the Soviet Union than any other place. And most of those Soviet Jews, I'd imagine, were Russian. And so Israel has not wanted to really get involved in this conflict. And so this document talks about how the U.S. could leverage Russia's relationship with Iran. Russia's always had a pretty cozy relationship with Iran, going back to maybe as far back as the Iranian Revolution back in '79. The Shah certainly was not on good terms with the Soviets. The Shah was a puppet of Britain and the United States. And so when he was overthrown, the next government really didn't have a whole lot of options other than to befriend Russia. Although the real relationship between the U.S. and the Iranian governments is more complicated than that. Even while American public opinion was very anti-Iran because of the Iranian hostage crisis, the U.S. did still work with Iran to a certain extent. Who could forget the Iran-Contra scandal? And it was really more into the 90s when you had the U.S. foreign policy establishment really cement Iran as an evil, and that was because, well, frankly, Israel considered Iran to be an evil enemy. And so since Russia is on good terms with Iran, this document talks about how the U.S. could use Iran to drive a wedge between Russia and Israel. Perhaps if the Russians were to help arm the Iranians in their ongoing tepid war with Israel, because I don't want to call it a Cold War, because you do have Israel constantly bombing Iranians inside of Syria, so it's not really a Cold War, but it's also not an all-out struggle to the death. Now, the problem with this plan is that it requires Russia to really take the agency here, to be the deciding factor in driving Israel towards Ukraine. Because the idea, obviously, is if Russia does more to support Iran, well, Israel's going to get upset at that, and so they will start supporting Ukraine as a form of retaliation. Now, on the other hand, this document proposes that the U.S. could be the one to take charge of the situation, and that the U.S. could simply double down on supporting Israel against Iran, and therefore earn some some brownie points from Israel, which would lead to Israel then supplying arms to Ukraine. So either Israel's relationship with Russia must worsen, or Israel's relationship with the United States must improve. That is the gist of what this document is going over. And so at the end of the day, the Pentagon, at least whoever wrote this document within the Pentagon, is suggesting that in order to win the war in Ukraine, all we have to do is declare war on Iran. There we go, problem solved. If we just go to war with Iran, well, then Israel will send some weapons to Ukraine. But then again, if they're involved in an escalatory conflict which leads to an all-out war with Iran, I don't think that Israel will really have a lot of weapons to spare and send off to Ukraine. I think that this is a rather gaping hole in this plan, as crazy as it is. But I mean, they outright stated that they're talking about taking more, I think, risky actions. I can't remember the exact term they used, but basically they were implying that, hey, Israel wants to do more stuff that could risk an all-out war with Iran. If we back them up, and i.e. imply or outright state, hey, if you get involved in a hot shooting war with Iran, we'll back you up, and essentially encourage Israel, the way Russia encouraged Serbia to puff out their chest against the Austrians, we would then be provoking a war between Israel and Iran, which we would then have to support. And I think that would be a much bigger problem than the war in Ukraine. And certainly by that point, Israel will not be in a position to help send arms to Ukraine. And so I don't want to overstate this too much, because all this is essentially spitballing inside the Pentagon. That's the way I see this document. I don't see this document as a statement of, hey, here's what we're doing. This is just some idiots who get paid to sit around and make these nice little sheets in Microsoft Publisher, coming up with just ideas to throw around the office. But it is a problem that you have people inside the Pentagon who are even considering these things. All of this is a dumb idea, and it's not even for a noble goal. It's for the goal of trying to get Israel to send weapons to Ukraine, a losing war. Everyone knows that Ukraine is a money pit. It's on life support. That's all. Ukraine is never going to get better. They're never going to win. And I don't say that out of glee. I don't say that because I think Putin's going to be such a greater leader. I don't really think that either side is particularly fantastic. I would say I tend to think that Zelensky and his lot are worse than Putin, just based on what I've seen. But I really wouldn't be eager to live under either regime, whether it be the one in Kiev or the one in Moscow. But all we can hope to do, if we really truly believe in the supremacy of the regime in Kiev, all we can do is just, keep the pulse up. The patient is never going to. They're bedridden. Ukraine is lying in its deathbed. It's only a matter of how long it's going to last. As soon as we cut off life support, they're gone. And there's no amount of drugs we can pump into them which will allow them to fight off the infection, or in this case, the invasion. So, with that said, I will see you folks back here tomorrow.